Hello, I'm Kat Finch, and welcome to the latest episode of the ServiceNow UK&I Executive Circle podcast series. Within our podcast, we speak to some of the industry's most exciting innovators, thought leaders, and senior executives, all with the aim of giving you, our listeners, the inspiration, insights, and market intelligence you need to help drive your organization forward. Welcome to today's ServiceNow Executive Circle podcast. I'm delighted to be joined by Davis Aguilar, the Global HR and GBS leader at Diageo. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Kat. It's a pleasure to be here today.
So let's start. Not everyone will know the breadth of Diageo. So tell us a little bit more around the company, your role, but also some of your past experience as well.
Thank you. I lead global HR operations for Diageo, which is a global spirits company that owns more than 200 brands such as Guinness, Johnny Walker, Smirnoff, Captain Morgan, Tanqueray Baileys, and many others. In this role, I'm responsible of how HR services are delivered across more than 67 markets and 29,000 employees. And we manage all employees' interactions from Tier 0 to Tier 1, Tier 2, specialized services like benefits, rewards, payroll, global process leads and owners. And before joining Diageo, 3 years ago, I spent a couple of years at Kimberly-Clark doing global process ownership and payroll transformation and HR transformation, and then 7 years in Mondelez, doing very similar roles, leading HR operations for the Americas, North America, Europe, global implementations of technologies like ServiceNow, payroll, and heavy focus on continuous improvement and transformation.
What an inspiring career. It's brilliant. Thank you. You may not be able to say, but do you have a particular favorite spirit in that 200, or what's your go-to?
I do actually. I have gone from Talisker being my favorite single malt to Lagavulin now.
Very nice. Very nice. I think everyone in here is nodding with approval there. Yeah. So in this role, and of course your previous role, you've had a fantastic career. You've led a lot of large-scale internal transformation projects. What have you seen as sort of some of the biggest challenges in terms of those projects? Has it been a technology? Is it the leadership, the culture? And then how did you overcome some of those challenges?
So what I believe is the three of them are interconnected, and the three of them are important, really. All of them have challenges and opportunities. Technology, fantastic enabler, but without adoption, there's nothing we can do, really. Leadership, we need them to role model, we need them to set direction. But fundamentally, I would say it's culture, really, that's going to end up really derailing or making a transformation successful. At Diageo, we are very aware of our culture and how it plays, our strengths and our opportunities, where we need to double down on. We are very collaborative. We have a highly engaged workforce, but sometimes we're not that fast in making decisions, right? So we try to ensure that when we are running these programs, that decision-making is clear from the beginning. I think that one of the most important things as well as you are transforming the way, especially when you're fundamentally changing how people operate. In these transformations, you're telling people you're not going to do something now, you're going to do something different. And we're very precious about the things that we do, right? We are comfortable, we add value. We have been doing these things for years. So ensuring that we have early adopters, ensuring that we have top leadership, sponsorship, and support, but then understanding as well that it'll take time. It'll take time. It won't be easy. I cannot say that change is an easy thing for any of us in many aspects of our lives, personal or professional. So just persevering, understanding that change will be a journey, and then just keep at it, really.
So what does HR and operational excellence look like from a Diageo perspective?
One thing that when I first joined, our late CEO told me the first time I met him was, we are great at brand building. We have great brands, great marketing, great adverts. All of those things are great. But when it comes to execution, we're not that great. And that's a recognition that we made as an organization. So we have now a relentless focus on operational excellence, on execution, on every single aspect of the business, and that includes HR, which I'm very proud of and very happy to see that as part of our people strategy, we have a pillar that talks about operational excellence altogether. So For us in HR, really, it translates into managers pulling information from our HCM in an easy way. It translates into a new joiner accessing tools that they need in an easy way without chasing approvals. And it's also a way in which employees can access responses, information from HR without friction.
That's really important across, I guess, the whole life cycle of an employee at Diageo, like you say, from onboarding all the way through to offboarding and beyond. So perfect. In such a large global organization, obviously you just mentioned the number of employees that you work for Diageo. There's always a balance between, from an HR perspective, between those global brand values and the local cultures at each sort of country level. How is that managed, and what role does technology play in that?
I know this is going to sound cliche, probably, Kat, but this is really, really true in Diageo. One thing that you notice the first time you start interacting with someone calling you from Diageo to join the organization is about the quick linkage you make in between yourself, your own history as an individual, and then the brands. It'll remind you your own personal experiences, your own celebrations with your family. It just brings a flood of memories, really. And that strong connection is very, very prevalent across all of our employees. So people remains and is always at the heart of everything that we do. And we want that culture to be respectful. We want a culture of trust and inclusion as well, where people feel engaged. One thing that we're very proud of is that 43% of our leaders today are women, right? And we have a goal for 2030 to be 50% of our leaders in the organization. So for us, inclusion and diversity are drivers for performance, and they are at the heart of our purpose, which is celebrating life every day, everywhere, right? So I think that when we talk about the linkage and the balance in between our culture as an organization globally and then the different markets, we operate in 67 markets, right? And what we want to ensure is that local teams have the freedom to bring them to life in ways that fit their context. So you'll see that across our different offices. You'll see that across the way how the local brands are really highlighted and spotlighted in those different markets as well. So we're very proud of our culture. I think it's one of the biggest things that we have, really. But we keep evolving it. We keep evolving it. And I'll talk more about it later. But yeah, it's a lot of things happening.
Perfect. And how do you use technology perhaps to sort of bring that together, the individual country culture, and then what you're trying to create from a sort of global core HR perspective? How can you use technology to bring that together?
As I say, we want to be really, really inclusive. And we want to make no distinctions in the way we deliver services from the HR perspective across different markets. We want to ensure that people feel and have the same experiences, no matter in which market you are, no matter where, no matter what type of job you do. And for us, ServiceNow is fundamental for that, because it's the way in which we want people to interact with HR. And we are on that journey. We're on the journey of creating an easy way to interact with HR, a way that is different from the way that we've done it in the past, in which we had our HR business partners heavily involved with everyone, which is and was the right thing to do at the time. But things are changing, are evolving. We want our HR business partners to be more engaged with talent, with performance of the organization, focusing on things that drive business growth rather than going into administrative stuff. And for that, ServiceNow is going to be fundamental for us. The other thing that we do in terms of culture as well is to ensure that through technology, we double down and we reinforce the behaviors that shape our culture today. So we have a platform, Celebrate, in which people can actually not only award and recognize other colleagues because of their achievements, but we can recognize and award people because of the practices of the behaviors that we want to practice. So acting decisively, experiment and learn, being externally curious. So those are the things that we're not asking the organization. These are the things that we want you to do. go ahead and do it, recognize your colleagues. So we're seeing a big uptake on these celebrate rewards, if you will, and awards, but then also a complete shift in the way we operate today, all in service of becoming a faster and agile organization at the end of the day.
And like you say, having the simple, easy technology that can allow employees to celebrate their colleagues at a click of a button
Absolutely.
makes the whole process a lot
Absolutely.
easier.
Thousands and thousands of recognitions throughout the year. And we're very proud of that implementation a couple of years ago. And that is the way in we're shifting and shaping the culture of the new Diageo.
And so how do you evaluate those sort of new technologies that you want to bring into your HR organization?
Kat, I think that this is just such an interesting question because we've had multiple conversations around technology all the time. And we always have that push and pull, if you will, in terms of the technologies that we think we want and need, but then the things that we really are able to implement, because those are the ones that will actually solve the problems that we want to solve. And I know that these times of great innovation, the variety of things out there is really, really vast. I think that everyone is trying to come up with the next big thing, and it's very tempting when you are faced and someone demos something very new. I mean, you want that, right? But the three questions that we are asking ourselves before we implement a new technology are, can my current technology do something similar? So the principle that we are applying is 80-20. If the technology that we have can do 80% of the things that we want, then we should go with that one. The second thing is, do we need to add another application to our tech stack? Again, that's because we want to eliminate complexity. We want a simple landscape when it comes to technology. And the third thing, which I believe is really important, is, are we culturally ready to adopt this solution in the organization? And we've had examples ourselves in which we have brought new shiny big things, very sophisticated, really great technologies, but one, our data, our foundations were not ready. And second, the organization was not ready really to take that leap. So understanding where you are, understanding what you need, understanding how complex you want to be is important before you make those big decisions.
In your view, does that push-pull come from sort of top down, so sort of board level, looking at competitors, taking on things like generative AI, thinking, I need that? Or does it come from below, from employees actually experimenting themselves with things like ChatGPT from a personal perspective, and then coming in and saying, no, we should use this? Is it one or the other, or is it?
I think we have more of the other. Kat, I think we have more employees experimenting right now with all these technologies and then asking and expecting the organization to implement. And I think that is also realization we made a couple of years ago where, we cannot be left behind. And I think that can be dangerous as well, because you can end up implementing, bringing a new solution just because you think that is the right thing to do because everyone else is doing it. But then at the end, it wasn't the right thing for you because there's no ROI, because you were not culturally ready, because your foundations were not ready. And then you end up having to pull the plug on many of those things. So I think that's understanding where you are really and balancing what people think they want and what you need is important.
Very wise, definitely. And so what's your perspective on generative AI and agentic AI? Do you see it being used more broadly? Do you see it, is it something that you can just enable you with like HR policy writing, manager evaluation, employee support? Where do you see that technology coming in?
I think all of the above. Kat, all of the above, or everyone is claiming all of the above, right? But the challenge that I see here is that organizations in the current landscape, if you will, when it comes to the industries, not only the spirits industry, but many other environments as well, is resources are limited, really. And you have to be really, really discerning, really choiceful as to where you invest your resources. And for us, understanding what the ROI is, what the use cases are to invest in AI is key and fundamental. And that's why we are experimenting, but at a smaller scale. We're learning, but we haven't really seen the value, Kat, to be honest with you. I mean, there are so many things that we want to do, and we believe that are the great things to do, but we want to ensure that what we bring to the organization at scale is something that's going to give us the return. I am fully supportive of AI. We have to put in place all the right guardrails when it comes to the data and privacy, and then ensuring that there's human in the loop when it comes to decision making. But are we there yet? I don't know if we are.
So you're incredibly passionate about projects that will drive ROI. Have you got an example outside of AI of a technology that or a system process that you've implemented at Diageo that has driven operational excellence for you?
Absolutely, Kat. I think that the biggest impact has come from combining our HCM Workday as our single source of truth for everything HR with ServiceNow as the workflow engine and the employee portal. I mean, the foundation that we have here, plus everything digital like signatures, documents, the automation, and the simplification of so many of our core processes has definitely led to a better employee experience. When I think about the times before ServiceNow, and I'm talking about my days in Mondelez in 2015 probably, our case management system was so rudimentary back then. And obviously, I know Mondelez is a great user and an organization that I still admire very much because of how relentless they are on evolution, always looking to evolve. But I think that, and again, we are on the same path there.
I love that answer. I think you've really taken what I take away from that is your focus on automation and simplification for your employees, which I think is a fantastic ethos to have. Now, when we spoke in preparation for this podcast, we discussed that there are sometimes assumptions made about employees, what they need, what they want. And you told me this fantastic example and story about field workers in Mexico and how they engaged with digital tools that are available to them. So could you talk us through that example again and what you've learned from it?
Yeah, absolutely. Tequila Don Julio, which I didn't mention at the beginning, is one of our fastest growing brands. And in Mexico, we have a very diverse employee base across the supply chain. Around 1,000 of those colleagues are field workers, and which is very different from the rest of the organization. These are people dedicated to caring for the agave plants in the fields in very remote locations in Mexico. I mean, this is work that takes 8 years before we can harvest the plants, right? So they are out in the fields in remote locations, limited access to the office services that we're so familiar with. And for years, we have assumed that we couldn't offer them the same technology because they didn't have access to smartphones and they didn't have access to internet. I mean, we couldn't have been so more wrong than this, really. You know, what we did, we pulled out a report to see and understand how many people have actually downloaded the payroll application out of these workers. 87% of them are actually looking into the payslip from their phone, which is now has torn down the whole assumption that we needed to send our HR managers to those remote locations to engage with them, to ask them to sign documents. And when I say remote locations, honestly, this is 4 or 5 hours drives.
Really?
Yeah, this is very, very far away, right? I've been there a couple of times. Beautiful, but very remote. So now we're on a mission to ensure that all of our 1,000 employees download and use the ServiceNow mobile app so that they can engage with HR directly. And I think that the greatest lesson here for us is to not design based on assumptions, design based on the evidence and how employees actually live and work.
Definitely. And moving forward into how you will continue to develop your employees' skills and their careers, how else are you going to be investing in technology and taking that knowledge and not using assumptions into the future?
Skills it's just a constant conversation, really, right, across the organization, whether it is on digital proficiency, whether it is on brand building, in which we have our very own course that we are very, very proud of as well. But I also think that skills will change depending on the different employees, the roles, and the levels. The great opportunity that employees have today is, and the challenge as well that we have, is to be more digitally savvy for everyone, independently of what type of role you're doing. We continue to hear about all these statistics of how many roles will disappear in 5, 10 years. When I compare that to some of those predictions 5, 10 years ago, many of them are very wrong. Things might not change to that extent, but we want to continue doubling down on those skills that will keep us ahead of the industry. I think that for us in HR, it's a very interesting inflection point in how we can be bold and forge careers that are different in this AI future that we have. To be honest, I don't think we have the right answer yet. I think we keep shaping, we keep learning, we keep adjusting, we keep then going back to the drawing board. And as long as we remain open, that things will continue to evolve, that we don't have a final product on how those skills will look like. And as long as we create an organization that is a learning organization, we'll be fine.
Yeah. And you completely deliver on that. The conversation about the Mexican field workers, you're obviously very open to that. I mean, a lot of conversations we're having with others in your role is around the multi-generational workforce coming in, but you're also looking at this culturally diverse organization as well. So you're sort of tackling it in such different, multifaceted way, but with that authenticity at the heart and with that simplification at the heart, which is amazing.
We have to, Kat. I mean, I don't think there's other way to do it, right? And we just have to be authentic in terms of understanding where we are, what we need to do, and what our challenges are as well.
And obviously, you obviously mentioned, the AI world and the next 5 years. It is really hard to predict what that's going to look like. But when you think about the skills that people in Diageo might need, how can you help prepare them for that?
That's also a very interesting question. I remember reading an article a couple of months ago in which they talked about the skills of the future, the skills that AI want to be able to provide, to give, to feel. And I think that article was so right, really, because again, we keep talking about data and digital proficiency, all great things, but in reality, and significance, but in reality, the human skills will remain at the heart of the things that we do. Collaboration, creativity, managing conflict, managing relationships. I think that those will continue to remain prevalent and important as we continue to move forward. Again, new skills will come, new things we will be learning, new things.
Technology will come.
New technologies. But then, really, how do we deal between ourselves as human beings? How do we resolve conflict? How do we resolve the politics of organizations? How do we resolve dynamics? The person and the organization who is more efficient at managing the people inside themselves and between themselves will be successful.
Amazing. And going back to the digital transformation program that you are currently running, what's the end result of that? Or start with, what has been your vision and sort of what's your end goal, your pathway to that successful program?
Ultimately, Kat, what we want to do is to create a company that is brilliant internally, just as the brands that we take to the market. That's it. We want to make it easier for consumers, for customers, for employees to deal with Diageo. That's our end goal. That's our end game.
Amazing. And how will you measure the success?
Well, obviously by the business performance, but we also measure it by the employee engagement, right? We are the top quartile of organizations like ours, really at 83% of engagement for Diageo over the last engagement survey a few months ago, something that we are very proud of. And also in terms of how we're constantly seeking data from our customers to understand the easiness of doing business with Diageo. the whole implementation of SAP, not only about data and how we manage logistics internally, but it's about making it easier for people to transact with our organization. The easier we make it, the better for the business and for them.
So if you had to describe the future Diageo employee experience in just 3 words, what 3 words would you choose?
The word of choice today, Kat, I would say digital, inclusive, and connected.
Brilliant choices. Very brilliant choices. And I wanted to ask you another sort of final question. I think there's probably a lot of companies out there, a lot of other HR leaders looking to you and looking to Diageo and what you're doing for inspiration. But I wonder, who do you look to? What other organizations, perhaps outside the spirits industry, do you look for inspiration?
I have very strong connections with my former organizations, strong connections and strong learnings as well. I've been very fortunate to be part of amazing companies in which I have learned a great deal, really, right? And I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't have those experiences. So I still remain a big fan of Mondelez, where I spent 7 years. And there's probably a lot of heart in there and bias as well. But the reason why I admire them is because they remain relentless in terms of evolution. They're always looking to improve employee experience. They're always looking for efficiencies. And that has put them definitely at a different level and a different scale of the maturity curve when it comes to HR. So I have my good friends over there, which I go to for inspiration, for questions, and to test my ideas and to see if what we're doing is right, wrong. What do you think? I think that's the value of friendship.
It is, yeah. We always need that. Well, I think we definitely will end the podcast there. I would love to go and try this tequila that you just talked about. So we'll have to try and find an opportunity to do that. But thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure to host you.
It's been a pleasure being here. Thank you, Kat, for having me.
Thank you for listening to the ServiceNow UK and I Executive Circle podcast. If you've enjoyed this or any of the other episodes of this podcast series, please do take a moment to rate or review us on your podcast platform of choice. We'd love your feedback. Finally, I'm Kat Finch, the host of the ServiceNow UK and I Executive Circle podcast. Thank you again for listening and speak with you again soon.